Add stream. There we go. We are cooking with gas now. To make some adjustments. Hello, hello to you all. I'm trying to sit in front of this lamp here. There we go. Even a little more. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for chiming in. We've got a great cast ready for you. I see Dr. Jackson already here. I see you. I see you. Well, we are going to go ahead and get started. We want to welcome you guys. Tonight we have a treat for you. I'm going to bring you on up to the platform. Dr. Jackson, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for doing this. And even at the last minute, I really appreciate it so much. Dr. Jackson is I'll let you introduce yourself. I've got a few little lower thirds that kind of describe who you are and kind of what you do, but tell the people who you are, what you do, and your expertise, because it is a conversation that we need to have. And let me say this before we get started. People, I'm encouraging you to like and share this on all of your platforms, because it is a conversation that is very important to who we are as people in general. So go ahead, Dr. Jackson, and introduce yourself and let us know who you are and kind of what you do.
Yes. So I am Dr. Jackson. I am a trauma therapist. I work here in Simpsonville, but I service Greater Greenville. As a trauma therapist, I specifically work with individuals who are experiencing either childhood trauma or adult trauma. And I do want to highlight that trauma therapy is therapy in which you go in with a specific trauma. I think oftentimes when we think about therapy is very broad, where I specifically work with individuals who have experienced and or are experienced trauma.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
And so then when we think about trauma, because oftentimes people think about trauma as being sexually abused or physically abused, which those do fall into the category of trauma. But trauma also too is anxiety, mood disorder, even when it comes to conflict and how we either avoid conflict or approach conflict. Oftentimes those are rooted in our trauma responses. So we reflect on childhood in order to work through that. So that is a mouthful.
It is. It is.
But I'm glad to be here with you so that we can break it down. And for those who have questions, we can really get to the nooks and crannies of it all.
Absolutely. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll let her answer every single question that you might have. And we also want to make people aware of how they can get in touch with you. And I should have asked you this before, but this is the correct email address and phone number?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Perfect. All right, let's back up. And you went over it just a little bit when you were talking. And let me say again, we are talking about trauma tonight, and want you guys to like and share. If there's somebody in your community, on your Facebook page, on your YouTube page, whatever it is, like and share and subscribe, whatever platform you're looking on, because this is an important conversation that we are having. Now, you mentioned a little bit about trauma. There are some things that happen to us and we don't realize they're under the umbrella of trauma. So talk to us about traumatic issues, traumatic things, or things that are defined as traumatic that would cause trauma.
So first we look at the behavior, right? And if you are somebody who has been, for instance, in relationships and you're like, I can't connect to people, it takes me a while to trust people, that's rooted in some type of trauma response. And when I say trauma response, oftentimes if you're an adult, it's rooted in like your childhood. And just being very candid, a saying here in the South is, we're going in this house, stay in this house. So you grow up to like normalize certain behaviors. And then when you become an adult, it impacts how you interact in relationships, how you open up and trust people. So I oftentimes, because everybody will come in, or not everybody, but people will come in and like, I don't want to talk about my childhood. But when you have these, what I like to call trauma response, whether it's relationship issues or even like communication issues, we often dial it back to how we watch our caregivers in childhood, and how we watch them is how we then perceive the world and interact in the world.
But
So
a
it's
lot
very complex, but the work is very, obviously very needed, but also too very candid and very vulnerable.
Talk about what happens, because you and I met actually at a forum, and we were talking about domestic violence, and you were talking about the trauma that is sometimes, and as you just mentioned, brought in from your household as a child. You bring it into your marriage or your relationships. But I want to ask you about COVID and everything that has happened during the times that we have been locked down, and there were a lot of cases of abuse that increased because of that. Can you talk about how COVID may have caused trauma on people and they just think, oh, I'm just functioning, but they need to step back and really look at what's happening? Go ahead.
Yeah. So what we have seen with COVID slowed us down. COVID forced us to be in our environments. And oftentimes, in the past, like we could run to the store or we could hang out or work long extended hours and then come home. But what COVID did, it made us slow down. It forced us inside. And it really forced us to recognize, that there are a lot of triggers in our environments that we can tend to avoid. But with COVID, it was like, it's right here in our face, which increased the rate of domestic violence. It also too increased anxiety, because we as people, we like to stay busy, because staying busy is oftentimes rooted in some type of trauma response, because it's avoidance. Because if I'm over here doing this, then I don't have to worry about what's going on in my home life. So we've seen an increase in anxiety because of that. Even when I do my quick assessments, if people are like, it's hard for me to stay still, or I don't like to be alone, as a trauma therapist, those are signs to me, maybe not necessarily that there is deep-rooted trauma, but there is the body's response, or the body is having difficulty being alone.
Wow. I didn't
And
realize
oftentimes when we dial it back, maybe, an individual grew up in a home where it was just loud and it was just a whole bunch of people. It could be too that how communication was displayed growing up, people were yellers, which then impacts how we communicate with one another. And what individuals don't realize is that if you grew up in a type of traumatic environment, it impacts your mental psyche, meaning it impacts how you then interact with other people. So those social skills, those soft skills that people always talk about, that we need to interact with the world, oftentimes those skills are delayed because we didn't see it in a healthy way growing up.
Let me ask this, because you mentioned the word soft skills. I remember they asked me that on a job interview, and I remember thinking, I don't know what that is. What is that? Talk about soft skills. You mentioned that those things are sometimes skewed depending on our environment that we grow up in. Talk about that a little bit.
So soft skills are...
I mean, I know what it is now, but but no, give a definition. Yeah.
So soft skills are what fall under the umbrella of our social emotional skills. And those are the skills that we need daily to interact throughout the day. And basically, it's how do you regulate your mood, right? So if I come, before work, if I go to Starbucks and somebody is like rude to me, do I let that, am I able to let that go, or will that show up on the job? It also too is like conflict resolution. Can we disagree in a healthy way? Which I love, and this is my disclaimer, I love to be on Facebook and watch people argue. I don't comment, but I watch people argue, because sometimes you just need to walk away. But it goes to show that when you don't have healthy conflict resolution skills, it's hard for you, your point, you force it on other people. And that's ingrained in how, we grew up. So that's a soft skill. Even communication. And oftentimes when an individual has experienced some type of emotional trauma, anytime they may get upset or it's like a disagreement, instead of like talking about it, they may like shut down. They may do the whole like silent treatment, and those are trauma responses from our
Wow.
soft skills that weren't developed in childhood.
That's interesting. Had no idea. I do want to, because there are some people who have joined us, I want to remind you that we are having a conversation with Dr. Jackson. And I put down here, I got this off of your website, therapeutic background is in trauma-focused care, social emotional programming, and group therapy. That struck my interest. When you talk about group therapy, let me dial it back just a little bit. Therapy, period. There are people who are not comfortable with going to therapy. Talk about the need for, or the benefit, I should say, for somebody going to a therapist and how it can help you, and why you shouldn't be ashamed of it.
So I believe everybody should go to a therapist, even if you're like, oh, like life is good. I personally believe that you need a neutral party, somebody who does not know you, is not affiliated at all with your environment. And when I say environment, that's like home life, know your grandparents and all of that. But somebody can give you like a neutral eye and a neutral lens on how to navigate the world. Because oftentimes, specifically in trauma, our environment is the same environment in which we've experienced trauma. And if it's not addressed, then it's probably a cycle. So I often say, if you have been in an abusive relationship, if you struggle in relationships, if you have experienced any type of molestation, oftentimes if you look through your family dynamics and it wasn't addressed, it could be that your caregivers have went through the same thing. So a therapist is someone who will walk you through your trauma, but also to give you insight that maybe, well, not necessarily your environment can give you. Because oftentimes, I mean, when we think about siblings or even like your best girlfriends, they're going to ride with you.
Right.
Whatever, like whatever you say is golden. And maybe there might be one friend in the group to be like, girl, I don't think you should do that. But your friends ultimately want to make you happy. And therapy is a place where you have to do the work. It's a place where you are going to be vulnerable, but it's a safe place, and therapists are trained to deal with that. And I think oftentimes, because we live in like a social media world where people are very scared and very protective of their information, which is rightfully so, but a therapist, confidentiality is our thing. But we're also to equip with navigating and keeping things confidential, because I see my clients out all the time, and the only way that you will know that they're my clients is that if they say something to you. Because as a therapist, we take our job very seriously, but we know that to be vulnerable and to be open and honest, we don't take that lightly.
I think the vulnerability is an issue, but I see some folks have questions, so I want to get to their questions real quick, and we're going to just continue this conversation. Okay, this is, I probably should have read it before I put it up here, but there is a saying that says, hurting people hurt people. I now realize that this is something deeply rooted. How can you help a person know that they hurt you when they don't think that they hurt you or don't think that they do? What can be a conversation started to get them to open up?
So I love this question because this is a twofold answer. Anytime you've been hurt, have a conversation with that person and let them know that you've been hurt, and identify, like give specifics of how they hurt you and how it made you feel. But in doing that, I think oftentimes we want people to change. Like we want people to be like, okay, so you recognize that you hurt me, you're not going to do that anymore. And the reality of it is that we can't control that. I'm a strong believer, and I tell people all the time, because they're like, I want to bring so-and-so with me. If they're not ready for therapy, it's not going to work.
Mm.
The best thing that one can do is get themselves in therapy, have a safe place to debrief, while also too learning communication skills to advocate for self. And in advocating for yourself, you are setting a boundary, and you are setting a boundary to protect yourself. But how that person, the other person, perceives your boundary is on them. But you said it, and if they don't respect it, then your therapist will give you tools to navigate that relationship. And sometimes it comes to cutting people off, which really sounds harsh, but you want to protect your mental psyche at all costs.
That makes sense. That makes sense. When you have, what if you're, and you touched on this, but I want you to elaborate on it a little bit. What if you are with someone and they don't, you feel like you guys need to go to therapy. They don't want to go. What do you do? Elaborate on that a little more.
And I see it all the time in couples where one partner is like, we need to go to therapy, and the other partner does not. I always strongly encourage the person who's open and willing to go, you do your work. And in doing your work, you will then start to change. And either that person is going to get on board or they're not. And I think therapy is a place where it opens our eyes, but your therapist is not going to tell you what to do. Your therapist is going to give you tools. Your therapist is going to bring things to awareness to you, but then you are left to make the decision for self.
I understand that. Another question we had. Do you think people process all categories of their life through a similar processing sequence? Do you understand that question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But do I think that? I want to say no, because life events can shape us. And even during COVID, for example, what we've seen, like COVID was a thing, COVID was in a box, and then we had George Floyd. And so those, although they happened or coexisted together, those two life events shaped us, and which is why a lot of we were having conversations about social justice, like what that really like looked like, and that impacts how we then process. Because social media is good, but social media is also too bad. But what social media now has done, it has brought awareness. Like, we live in South Carolina, but I mean, with a click of a button, we can do a live stream in California. Like, we can know like what's going on. So those various events, even though that we're not directly impacted, shape how we process events.
When you go, say if someone goes to therapy and like you said, you begin to grow, that other person doesn't want to, and I guess this is different for everybody, but where do you decide, or how do you break that relationship? How do you decide, okay, we're just going to be two ships passing? Because some people stay in relationships for financial reasons, or just because they're comfortable. They don't want, we built all this together. We don't want to let all this go. Where do you decide where the breaking point is?
It goes back to the work. Oftentimes some people just get it. And then there are other people who, I mean, it takes a while to get it. I've seen where the partner who didn't want to do it, seeing, their partner like doing the work and how it has impacted them. And they were like, okay, like I need to make a change.
I want to go back, and I mentioned this before, but then I think I overshadowed it with another question. Talk about the vulnerability of going to counseling, especially for certain communities. We don't go because we don't want to be vulnerable, especially, well, just some communities. Some men don't want to go, some women don't want to go, depending on where you are financially or what you do as a career. There are just some people who are afraid to be vulnerable to another individual in counseling. talk to somebody who may be sitting on the edge and they may think, you know what, I want to go to a counselor. I'm just not sure what I'm going to walk into. Talk about that.
You know, I believe that if you are thinking about it, you should go. But being real with yourself, because I think too, people believe that when you go to therapy, like the first session is going to be like amazing, my life is going to be changed. But I say date your therapist. Like if you don't connect, if your therapist does not make you feel safe, it's okay not to come back.
But go find another one.
Go find another one. But it's okay if the first one doesn't work. I feel like some people will go, and if it doesn't work, they're like, no, it's not for me. But if you are having these thoughts, and if you can say, like, I feel stuck here and I don't know why, or I'm having trouble sleeping, or there are things that keep me up late at night, then you need to go. And even like being honest in regards to physical ailments. If you have high blood pressure, if you are experiencing like chest pains, stomach aches, headaches, or trouble sleeping, all of those are symptoms of anxiety. And if you have went to a medical professional and they are like, oh, I can't find anything, or giving you the runaround, go see a therapist. Because a lot of anxiety, a lot of mood disorders have physical ailments.
Okay, go back to what you said were some ailments of anxiety. Or
headaches, stomach aches, even chest pains. But I always say, if you're having chest pains, go get to a medical doctor first. But if you continue to have them, even if you are somebody who's like, my heart races a lot, those are symptoms of anxiety that come out in physical ailments. And even like the clenching of the teeth, biting of the nails, because it's all fidgety, what we call fidgety functions, meaning that your body is in an environment and it's in some kind of way trying to distract the brain from what's going on. So we fidget.
Wow.
The tapping of the legs, which is why body language is so important. And people all the time are like, you assess for everything, and our nonverbals speak loud as well.
Wow.
And oftentimes people don't even know that they are, or that there are triggers in the environment until they like really walk through it.
Sit down and pay attention to what's going on. You're absolutely right. That's why I wanted you to go back over it again. And when we initially started this conversation, you talked about childhood traumas. Talk about things that happen to children that will cause traumatic experiences for them that they will deal with for, I don't want to say the rest of their lives, but they will deal with later in life.
So when we think about childhood trauma, we also too have to think about childhood development, like how their brains are and how their brains are continuing to develop. So in a child who grows up in a home where parents are yellers, or they've witnessed domestic violence, or even where parents get mad at each other or get mad at the child and then they don't speak to the child, all of that is ingrained in their mental psyche. So when they get of age, and we start seeing it like around like 4th and 5th grade, where they have trouble communicating, where if they get upset, instead of like working it out with a peer, they get really aggressive. We oftentimes see this in little boys. They get really aggressive because their brain hasn't internalized that when this happens, or when I feel this way, this is how I'm supposed to act. And this is how my body will respond. Which is why for school teachers, and this is my whole disclaimer, because I love teachers. I always thought I was going to be a teacher. And then I took a class. I was like, this is not for me. But with school age children, the education system needs to shift, because I mean, kids are coming in and they see very, very complex things. And it's not even so much of like in the house, but like social media.
Hmm.
To be transparent, I had a client where her child was 9. Um, and then all of a sudden, child went from like sleeping good to having very extreme nightmares, wetting the bed, regressed totally. And I was like, okay, bring them in, because all of those were trauma responses to me. And I was like, okay, I need to see your kid. The child had actually watched George Floyd's death on
Wow.
social media. And these are conversations that we should address, but kind of got swept aside because, you know, life was happening, and, you know, the education system doesn't have all of the resources to have these conversations, but it's real, and our kids are on their devices.
Yes. I do remember even when 9/11 happened and they were showing the planes hitting the towers. And I do remember, I don't even know where it came from, but I remember because I was in a newsroom at the time, and they said that we are going to stop showing that. It was like maybe 2 or 3 days after it had happened. After it happened, and they said we're going to stop showing that because doctors are saying that it is causing a reaction in
Secondary
people.
trauma.
Yeah, to keep watching that. I mean, maybe like even a week later or something. It was like limit the shots that you put on air of those of the impact. We don't want to keep seeing that because that is just too much for people to handle.
Because our brain is amazing, and it does really great things for us. But our brain, if the more and more that we see something, especially if it's very traumatic or if it like makes us feel a ways, then the more and more we see it, our brain will tell us that we need to respond in certain ways. So whether it's I get fidgety or I get like shortness of breath. And so then what happens is that the more and more that we see it, it's as if we are actually like there, like we've been directly impacted. Which is why I often tell people, especially younger kids with social media, like being intentional about taking a break, because we overconsume and our brain is filtering all of that. And if we don't process through it, if we don't talk through it, then it will be ingrained in here, and then our body will respond in a very traumatic way. And it's essentially our brain trying to protect us. But the more and more that we dilute our brain with it, the more and more our stress cortisol goes up, which that impacts like heart palpitation and the sweat glands and things of that nature.
Is it true that the brain cannot tell the difference between what's real and what's pretend? Can you talk about that?
So, and even when it comes to when we think about brain development, our kids' brains cannot interpret death and the permanency of death until they're 10. So if they see, whether it's video games or even like clips of killing, even if it's like fake, the brain can't distinguish between it. And so then it's real, and our body goes into like the flight or fight mode where we have to protect ourselves. So either I'm gonna like run and go, or I'm going to avoid, which oftentimes where people are like, they have like that blank stare, or this happened and she didn't even cry. It's because the brain has been ingrained that this is how I respond.
Wow. Wow. Do you think that children nowadays, that there's almost like a disconnect? There's almost sometimes in kids that they're like emotionless, like you mentioned about, and not just kids, but I've seen it in even some adults, like they'll lose a family member, lose a child, something tragic happens, and then they're just like, nothing happened. Like you said, blank stare. They've got their emotions intact. They're not falling apart. It's just, they're just like, this is just what's happening. I'm just going to deal with it. And I always thought it was the way people process things differently. That was my thought. But hearing you talk, I wonder if it's something that just isn't fully developed.
I believe it's a little bit of both. I also believe that kids nowadays don't have imaginative play. Because it used to be like everybody just had an imagine friend or pretend friend, and you talk through, but now kids don't have that. They have access to phones and electronics super duper early. And then also too, because and I'm going back to George Floyd just because it's more prevalent, but with like George Floyd, like it's repetitive, like it just keeps going, and you see that video and you go to something like completely different. So the brain again doesn't know what's real or fake, but goes to a completely different video, and it's kind of like, oops, like that happened, and now I'm watching a dog video. And then like 10 minutes later, I might see George Floyd again. But then after that, I'm watching flowers and rain or a music video. So our brain, we don't even give our brain time to like really process through things, which is why during COVID, I created like processing groups to really make us slow down, but also to creating a community to realize, that we're all going through this together, bringing different perspectives to the conversations, while also to working through and utilizing our soft skills, like talking it through, learning how to do conflict. Because again, in your environment, you grew up in that environment, and people say all the time, I can always argue. Okay. But the reality of it is that like you can't argue at your work. And it's a different way to address conflict other than arguing. And that's why I created groups to kind of like allow people to do that and to be comfortable with doing that in a collective group.
Interesting. I do want to say, while we have people coming in, coming out, going in, we are talking to Dr. Jackson, and we are talking about trauma. I want you to talk about the Benefits of Healing group that you have coming up next Tuesday. Share that information and what that will be about.
Yes. So I am hosting a free webinar next Tuesday at 8:30, and you can register on all of my platforms. And it's basically talking about the importance of a healing group, where it'll be a closed group, but we come together to talk about life, talk about like what's going on in life, while utilizing and developing. And I say developing because for a lot of us, we may have good communication skills, but we don't have good conflict resolution skills. Or we struggle with interacting with other people because we spend a lot of time on our electronics. But being able to verbalize, to be in the same space with one another. And it's online, and it's guided by me, where honestly, everything is on the table. I mean, there's not one topic, not one question that will not be answered. But it's a place where we can connect. It's a place where it's out of our regular routine, where we specifically slow down and process through life.
I think that's important. I do want to put up this information. Anybody that wants to get in touch with Dr. Jackson, her phone number is there. Her email address is there. You can also go to your Facebook page, or what is it?
Yes. It's my Facebook page,
Okay.
Jaquinda Jackson, and then my business page is Jackson Consulting LLC. You
Okay.
can find me.
Good deal. We appreciate that. And then I wanted to share some of the comments. One person is saying, great conversation. Thank you for doing that. Another person saying, hello, nice to meet you, Dr. Jackson. And we ask that you like and share this conversation. If you're enjoying this, if you're getting something out of it, please like and share this conversation so that people on your platforms can see what's happening. Also, someone saying thankful for this conversation.
Adrian.
I know this is how we met. Thank you so much, Adrian, for connecting us to a jewel. So much appreciated. And here's another question from one of our viewers. Do therapists re-educate themselves on a consistent basis to deal with the changing problems of society, or do they rely on what they've learned in the past?
No, I'm a believer of education. I'm currently in school now, taking another class. I believe for me to be the best therapist, I need to stay current on different techniques and different tools. Because, I mean, to be completely honest, COVID has showed us the importance of technology, which a lot of therapists were not equipped to do or to transition their practices. So, yes, best practice for me, I try to take, and I say try to take, at least one class every 2 years. But I've kind of been very focused on serving people within my community as far as social justice goes, advocating for diversity, because I do a lot of group trainings for nonprofits and organizations, teaching individuals to have those conversations and not avoid, because, you know, we like to avoid uncomfortable things.
It's a lot of, I was just thinking a lot of people, and I want to, as I'm asking this question, Audrey is saying that she is watching. We appreciate that, Audrey. Thank you so much for chiming in. And let's see, I thought there was another one. Oh, here's another one saying, this is real talk. Connor is saying, we appreciate that. Absolutely. Are there people who, what if somebody thinks they can't afford to go to talk to somebody? Are there options that are minimally priced,
yes,
where they can go and get help? Talk about that,
yes.
please.
Yes. So, I always encourage, if you are employed in, it can be part-time and or full-time, I would encourage you to go through your employer. A lot of EAP programs offer free therapy sessions. And then if not, oftentimes your insurance company can work out a rate with your clinician. Like if you find a clinician and you're like, ooh, I like her, oftentimes your insurance can work out a rate between the insurance and the clinician. And then there are different initiatives, like Mental Health of Greenville has an initiative where they have contracted with specific clinicians. Mental Health Alliance, which is really big now, they have different initiatives. Therapy for Black Girl have different initiatives. What COVID has taught a lot of people and different providers and a lot of employers is the importance of mental health. So there are a ton of resources out there, especially too, like when I got started, when I first got into private practice compared to like now. Like I said, I believe a lot of people realize the importance of mental health and the importance of making mental health accessible.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Talk about, I guess, some of the things that you see prevalent in your, well, let me back up. You and I met at a domestic violence panel discussion, and it was really, I felt like it was eye-opening for those who were a part of it and for those who were listening. A lot of people find themselves in situations and they may not think, and I'm saying this kind of recapping for those who are even chiming in because we've got some new viewers. For those who might not realize that they're in a situation that could cause a traumatic response or cause them to carry trauma with them. Talk about in relationships, some of the subtle things that are done. And when I say subtle, it isn't overblown, but it still affects you down the road. Can you talk about that?
Because oftentimes people think like I'm in an abusive relationship when I get hit or when I get pushed. But when we think about if you're demeaned, which when we talk about emotional abuse, it's when somebody like demeans you, if they call you out of their name, calls you out of your name, calls you stupid. Even if you get into an argument and somebody like gives you the silent treatment, like we're in the same space, but I'm not like talking to you, that's emotional abuse. And those are very subtle, but also too emotionally abusive. And even as far as like if you get into an argument and say you like go home, your partner's like blowing up your phone like constantly. Like those are signs of controlling or of being controlled.
Yeah. Interesting. If you have questions for Dr. Jackson, please feel free to put them in the chat. If you are watching this, we encourage you to like and share. And also she has a free seminar that is coming up, a Zoom seminar that's happening on Tuesday. And just kind of recap that for us, please, Dr. Jackson.
Yes. So the Zoom webinar that I will be hosting on next Tuesday at 8:30 will talk about like group healing, what it looks like, why you should be in a group, the benefits of being in a group, and the importance of not only utilizing your soft skills, but developing, like refining and building community like outside of your everyday life.
How important is it for you to build community? I keep hearing you talk about groups and group discussions. What if somebody just wants to come to therapy by themselves and they don't want to be in a group? They don't want to have group conversation.
Listen, I'm all for individual therapy. However, groups create a place where you can actively utilize the skills that you're learning. So being in a group, you don't have to go in and say like, hey, like this is what I'm working on. Because in a group, there's structure. There are different prompts that I'll provide. Each group session has a group topic, but it's for us to really kind of talk through while also to hearing different perspectives, holding each other accountable, creating personal goals while also to working in a group. Because oftentimes in individual therapy, we have an amazing group. We'll have an amazing session, but it's hard to put into practice because then you go back into your environment. And oftentimes your environment is why you got into therapy. So group is where you can process through with a group of people, but also to utilizing the skills and learning to navigate different relationships and different personalities rather than avoiding or I'm just not going no more because if we don't like something, we don't go, or if it makes us feel uncomfortable, then we avoid. But you want to learn the tools to navigate, especially when we talk about growth or I want to get to the next level or I'm stuck right here and I don't know why. You got to learn the tools. And and I tell people all the time, like, you should always, like, if you can, you should leave home. But for a lot of people, that's not the reality. So being put in a group where you are able to interact with other people outside of your environment gives you the chance to build and hone in on those skills.
How do you know if your child needs to go to therapy? How do you know if your child needs to talk to someone? And at what age? Sorry, go ahead.
So I started seeing kids as young as 5. And I always say, trust your mommy gut, trust your daddy gut. If your kid says something out of the way, or if your child, for instance, what I shared earlier about like bedwetting, if your child is like fully potty trained and then all of a sudden it is bedwetting, or all of a sudden complaining about like stomach aches, headaches, they need to go to therapy. Or if they used to love to go to school and now you're like fighting them to go to school, take them to therapy. And even if it's an assessment, and I think oftentimes too, when we think about therapy, we think about it as being something like very long, but sometimes you need an assessment to make adjustments, because your therapist too can also, or should be able to, provide you with like different resources. For instance, like I'm a trauma therapist and I say not everybody needs trauma therapy. However, I will do an assessment, and if I'm like, okay, this doesn't warrant trauma therapy, but maybe some behavioral modification, then I have no problem with referring out. And you should be able to ask your therapist that.
Wow. Is there anything that you see walk through your office more than any issues that you see walk through your office more than any other thing? I know I'm asking that in a weird way, but what is the prevalent, I don't know, maybe diagnosis, maybe even since COVID, it has changed, that you see in people?
Okay, so I see a lot of anxiety. I see anxiety, and I see anxiety in younger kids a lot more than adults. Um, and now I am seeing, as far as adults, I'm seeing like a lot of mood disorders.
Really?
And it's just the ability to like navigate our emotions. And we talk a lot about COVID and how COVID, I mean, literally our days like shifted overnight. I remember Governor McMaster got on the TV and I was just like, oh no, this is gonna be bad. And we had no time to plan. But even in that, I mean, people have lost family members that they were not able to grieve. And then for a lot of people, it has been back to back, whether it's family members, coworkers, even neighbors. So grief is really big, and grief is one of those that impacts our moods. It impacts how we show up and how we interact with other people. And just a little nerd bit of me. So for my dissertation, for my doctorate, I actually studied PTSD. I studied trauma response. I studied compassion fatigue. And what we are seeing is that people with mood disorders who have the inability now to like, I feel some type of way, but can't put a word to it or can't put a behavior to it, is comparable to individuals who have like lived in third world countries and have witnessed like war, like face on.
So the therapy game, and I'm using that word loosely, that has to change so that you're able to capture all of those other moods and feelings now that people are feeling because of everything that we've been through.
Right. Which is A, why I went back to school, and B, why I developed these community groups, because, I mean, let's be honest, it's only one of me. And to be completely honest, and I say this in all fairness, but your therapists are like swamped. Like,
your therapists are what?
Are swamped. Like, I mean, I know people who are booking out until like the first of the year, which makes me excited. But then on the flip side, I'm like, there are a lot of people who need help.
Yeah.
Which group is a thing that can carry you over. And just because you are in group therapy doesn't mean you can't be in individual therapy. But being very innovative, and I think getting back to the basis of having healthy connections is so important, because we've seen what it's like not to have people, to not have our tribe. For the people that transition from going to work, now working from home, that interaction that you could talk to your coworker while you getting up, or staying at coffee, that's no more. And we need people to people connection.
That's important.
Very important, which is why it was so important for our kids to go back to school safely, because we were seeing and kids, how they were regressing with their social skills. Because it's different when you're at home and you're interacting with your cousins or your siblings, or for kids who have no children in the home, or like they're the youngest and there's like a 10-year gap. Like those social skills, you need it for daily life, but you also too need it for brain development.
Wow. I do have another question from someone asking about, are there any national support groups for children of incarcerated parents? That's an excellent question.
That's such a great question. I don't know of any nationally known ones. However, I do know of one in DC, and it's kids of incarcerated parents, and that might be national now that I think about it. But it was actually a program that I used to volunteer with when I was in DC.
Okay. Hadn't thought crossed my mind, but children of incarcerated parents, talk about that, how that affects them. And we're going to, for those of you who are watching, we ask that you like and share. Please do that. And we're going to wrap things up in just a little bit. So you have just a little bit of time to post those questions. Please put them in the chat and we will ask Dr. Jackson to answer your questions. But we are here talking to Dr. Jackson. We're talking about trauma, and she's a trauma therapist, and things that happen, and really you come from a stance of childhood. Explain to those who are just coming on your perspective and your course of care.
Yeah, so I work with individuals who have either experienced childhood trauma or are currently in childhood trauma. And I work with a wide variety of not only sexual trauma, but physical trauma, emotional trauma, anxiety, and mood disorders all fall into that umbrella.
Wow.
And just to go back to your question in regards to incarcerated parents, that's huge because it takes a parent out of the home, or takes a relationship from a child. And then there have been ongoing debates about if a parent is incarcerated, should a child go see an incarcerated parent? And I strongly assess the child, because going to any type of jail, prison, and as an adult, it's scary. Anxiety is high because you don't know what you're going to expect. But again, I think it's up to the child. I work with families who have decided to do that, but again, it's work. It's very detailed and very honest work, because also too, I think it's very important for the child to understand why their parent is incarcerated. And I'm on my parents who I've worked with in the past to be honest, and to be honest on what that relationship will look like, because you have to foster it. And it's work, especially when your child is active and they go to school, and after school they have sports. Like, is it fair to them to say, like, hey, we have to stop this by 5:30 because we got to get home to talk to mom on the phone who's incarcerated? Like, that, it's a lot to put on a child. And I believe that there definitely needs to be more supports around it, and be very transparent and working and dealing with that.
How do you know if you as an adult, if you need to go and see someone, or if you're carrying trauma from your childhood? What does that look like in an adult?
If you are carrying trauma from your childhood, in adults, it often shows up in the whole statements of, like, I don't have friends, I don't trust people. If you feel like you're very edgy or very guarded, that's rooted in something. Even if you struggle in relationships, as far as what you seek, like if you are one who only goes for the bad boy, or goes for the bad girl, or goes for the unavailable person, those are signs of of childhood trauma.
Wow.
And even if you are one who, when something bad happens, you just cut it all the way off, those are signs of trauma.
Wow. How can you as a parent help your child, your adult child? And I know that you can't tell adults what to do, but if you're a concerned parent, and how do you help your adult children who have maybe gone through a traumatic relationship or something, outside of the home once they have gotten out on their own? What can you do?
You create the safe place to talk about it. And you talk about it within your bandwidth and say, like, hey, like, I want to support you. I know personally that I can't walk you through it, but I recommend going to therapy, or even like providing them with a list of therapists, or showing them how to access a list of therapists. Because oftentimes too, people are like, when we go through something bad, or when we go through something or a traumatic thing that like hurt us, we tend to internalize because we're embarrassed. And if you know that, I always say, create the safe place where we can acknowledge it. We can take the elephant out the room and acknowledge that something happened. And I'm willing to go with you or walk through with you as much as I can to get you help, or to make sure that you are okay. Because then you're not forcing it, but you're opening the door to be like, hey, I see it. This is a huge thing. It should be addressed. So I'll support you on whatever that looks like.
That's good. That is good. Is there anything that you think is important to address for those of our viewers who are watching, about trauma, what trauma looks like, what they need to do? You can't just sweep everything under the rug. That's impossible, because if you put something under the rug, it's eventually going to come up. So is there anything that you need to address in kind of our last few minutes together about how people can navigate through all of this, and then also how they can get in touch with you?
If you have experienced something traumatic, get help, because the reality of it is that if you don't address it, it's going to come back up. It's going to show up in your relationships. It's going to show up in your work. It's going to show up how you interact with your environment. But also, too, the longer that you internalize it, it increases your chances of having physical ailments. Wow. Meaning chest pains, high blood pressure, headaches, and you deserve more than that. And my whole thing is that you would go to a doctor if your arm was broken. You would run to a doctor if your arm was broken. So if you've experienced something traumatic, then you owe yourself the same thing to take care of self. Because if your mind not right, nothing's right.
That's good. That's good. I did want to ask, you said something and it made me think about, I can't think of what it was. Tell everybody how to get in touch with you, and then also talk about your webinar that's coming up.
So you can reach me on all of my social media at Jackson Consulting LLC. That's my business page. And then also to Jaquinda Jackson on Facebook. Next Tuesday at 8:30, I have a free webinar, and you can find that on my social media platforms, where we are going to discuss the importance of healing groups, the benefits, and then why you should be in one.
That's awesome. Be in a group. Yeah. We appreciate you so much. I was just looking to make sure we didn't have any other questions, and I hope people will take the time. I do want to ask you this last question. It has to do with a lot of African Americans not feeling like therapy is necessary, or there's taboo. A lot of men feeling like therapy is not necessary or taboo. And even some women who feel like it makes them look a certain way, or diminishes them in some way, and they don't feel like therapy is necessary. Talk to those as we close out.
We need to debunk all of those. because there is no award for being the strongest. Your mental psyche is way more important than what people think. Having good mental psyche will allow you to navigate life more easily, to make sound decisions, to decrease your chances of creating negative cycles, but it also too allows you a space for you to truly be you and to get out of your mind like what you are thinking and feeling.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you for having me.
This was so awesome. And I hope you have lots and lots of people who come to your seminar.
Yes. Come next Tuesday.
We are going to keep it posted on our Facebook page, but
thank you.
Also your Facebook. I just wanted to make sure they got that. Is that right? Jaquanda
Yes.
Jackson Facebook. Okay. You can find her there and get all of her information that you need. Anything else you want to say? Closing remarks before we let you go?
Go to therapy.
It's okay, right? Get help. If nothing else,
Yes.
like you said, to get an assessment to just kind of figure out how to navigate through whatever you're dealing with. So
Right.
Good deal. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for your questions. Still like and share this and share it with folks that you think need to hear this because it was a good conversation. We appreciate you. Take care.
Have a good night.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.